The beginning of the 20th century was a very interesting period of time. It saw the last large population of working children, treated as adults. In Western Europe, the average age of children leaving school rose to 14, rather than 12, just a few decades back. However, traditional schools were not always seen as a liberation of children, but sometimes as a method for social control and economic repression. This led to the early 20th century to be a prolific time for alternative methods of education. Maria Montessori opened her first children's home in Rome. Rudolf Steiner founded the first Waldorf school, and Robert Baden-Powell held his first scout camp. All of them share, as they still do today, many common approaches. They also owe a lot of their specificity to the conditions of the time when they were started. In the case of Scouting, those were represented by a colonial empire with austere Christian morals. A century later, as it has spread across the continents, Scouting has become a truly international movement, at the crossroads of cultures and spiritualities. The duty to God, as it is present today in the World Constitution, is interpreted in different ways across national organizations. For some, it is a reference to a personal God as conceived by the three great monotheistic religions: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. For others, it is linked to a spiritual reality or a personal worldview that encourages the individuals to seek a larger-than-themselves meaning to their lives. Imagine the spiritual awareness of one person as a sea that collects experiences and influences from sources like family, community, culture, school, life in general. Assuming we accept religion as one of these streams, which is not always the case, we can see Scouting and religion either like two separate streams, each contributing to the spiritual development with different aims and tools, or we can see them as part of the same effort, strengthening and using each other to achieve a common goal. Whatever the case might be, in the field of spiritual development, Scouting should propose learning opportunities which are upstream from religious education. Based on their approach to these concepts, we can distinguish three categories of Scout associations. Faith-based associations, such as Catholic Scouts or Muslim Scouts, who complement Scouting spiritual development with a specific religious program. Multi-faith associations, such as Boy Scouts of America, who complement Scouting spiritual development with different religious programs. While there is no one religion that prevails in the organization, it remains an essential concept in the delivery of spiritual development, and each group chooses the relevant faith authority to support them. Non-denominational Scout associations, which have no direct link with any religion, provide solely Scouting's intrinsic spiritual development opportunities, which can be complemented by religious education, but within the families or communities. Some associations allow local groups to deliver spiritual development linked to a specific religion and form networks, such as the Muslim or Sikh Scouts in the UK, while the association as a whole remains open to all. It is worth noting that the latter category is not a recent invention in Scouting. Before 1924, Baden-Powell himself accepted within the movement a number of secular associations without any explicit reference to service or duty to God. Scouting's approach to spiritual development, at least at global level, does not seek to replace religious education, but rather to form a common core that links all the different Scout associations, whether or not they are linked to a specific religion. A similar approach is seen in some non-denominational Scout associations, which are not anti-religion, but seek to provide a common spiritual base that is common to all young people, regardless of their personal background and beliefs. Scouting seeks to develop all dimensions of the person. It recognizes 6 areas of personal growth based on a generalization of the makeup of a human being. In this sense, we recognize people to be bodies, leading to the need for physical development, minds, leading to the need of intellectual development, emotions and feelings, leading to the need for emotional development, relationships, leading to the need for social development, a sense of identity, will, and agency, leading to the need for character development, and a soul, or any metaphysical view of the world, a sense of morality or transcendence, leading to the need for spiritual development. Among all these, spiritual development is probably the most difficult area to deal with, because of the sensitivities and complexities involved. Scout leaders have a lot of questions about spiritual development. They sometimes find it difficult to understand the root of spirituality, which is linked, as Thompson and Randall explain, to the efforts of understanding the meaning and causes of life experience. The role of Scouting is precisely to help young people frame the right questions about these and not offer any dogmatic answers. Many leaders feel that this is an area of growth really different from the others, and they aren't always confident that they can facilitate the spiritual development of young people. The classical way to respond to this difficulty was to assimilate spiritual development with a religious practice. And the problem is solved by adding times of prayer, reflections, or religious moments to Scouting activities. More often than not, we find that Scout leaders abandon spiritual development to experts, like priests, chaplains, imams, or others. In this way, National Scout organizations are outsourcing the issue of spiritual development to religious organizations on which they depend on or to which they are linked by partnerships agreement. In general, it's difficult to imagine spiritual development other than through a religion. But can we admit that Scouting has nothing specific or nothing more to say about spiritual development? Should we not define specific educational objectives for this area? What competencies do we think young people need to acquire in order to live happy and fulfilled lives, also from a spiritual perspective? Is knowing and respecting one's own religious practices, possibly combined with knowledge and acceptance of others, enough? How can we help them go deeper and ask more fundamental questions in order to be able to form an informed view of a complex world and find meaning for their own existence? The United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child recognizes spiritual development as a category of human development, along with physical, intellectual, emotional, and social development. While some people see spirituality overlapping with religiousness, many others see a clear distinction between the two. And this is also because history and current events show that the religious belief can assert itself outside and even against fundamental spiritual principles. The best comparative definition I could find in what concerns spirituality and religion comes from Professor Yuval Noah Harari. Religion is a deal whereas spirituality is a journey. Religion gives a complete description of the world and offers us a predefined contract with predetermined goals. God exists. He told us to behave in certain ways. If you obey God, you'll be admitted to heaven. If you disobey Him, you'll burn in hell. The very clarity of this deal allows society to define common norms and values that regulate all human behavior. Spiritual journeys are nothing like that. They usually take people in mysterious ways towards unknown destinations. The quest usually begins with some big question, such as, who am I? What is the meaning of life? What is good? Whereas many people accept the ready-made answers provided by the powers that be, spiritual seekers are not so easily satisfied. But why label such a voyage spiritual? Well, this is a legacy from ancient dualist religions that believed in the existence of two gods, one good and one evil. According to dualism, the good God created pure and everlasting souls that lived in a wonderful world of spirit. However, the bad God, sometimes named Satan, created another world, made of matter. Satan didn't know how to make his creation last. Hence, in the world of matter, everything rots and disintegrates. In order to breathe life in his defective creation, Satan tempted souls from the pure world of spirit and locked them inside material bodies. That's what humans are, a good spiritual soul trapped inside an evil material body. Since the soul's prison, the body, decays and eventually dies, Satan ceaselessly tempts the soul with bodily delights, and above all with food, sex, and power. When the body disintegrates and the soul has a chance to escape back to the spiritual world, its craving for bodily pleasures draws it back inside some new material body. The soul thus transmigrates from body to body, wasting its days in pursuit of food, sex, and power. Dualism instructs people to break these material shackles and undertake a journey back to the spiritual world, which is totally unfamiliar to us, but it is our true home. During this quest, we must reject all material temptations and deals. Due to this dualist legacy, every journey on which we doubt the conventions and deals of the mundane world and walk towards an unknown destination is called a spiritual journey. Such journeys are fundamentally different from religions, because religions seek to cement the worldly order, whereas spirituality seeks to escape it. Often enough, the most important demand from spiritual wanderers is to challenge the beliefs and conventions of the dominant religions. In Zen Buddhism, it is said that if you meet Buddha on the road, kill him. Which means that if, while walking on the spiritual path, you encounter the rigid ideas and fixed laws of institutionalized Buddhism, you must free yourself from them too. For religions, spirituality is a dangerous threat. Religions typically strive to rein in the spiritual quest of their followers, and many religion systems were challenged not by lay people preoccupied with food, sex, and power, but rather by spiritual truth seekers who wanted more than platitudes. This way, the Protestant reform against the Catholic Church was ignited not by some hedonistic atheist, but rather by a devout and ascetic monk, Martin Luther. Incidentally, Baden-Powell himself defined once the spiritual development as a journey, rather than merely Scout catechism. With this in mind, even faith-based Scout associations should aim at the broader sense of spiritual development of young people, without limiting themselves to religious education. And many of them actually do. In part 2 of this presentation, I will be looking at children's spiritual abilities and the concept of relational consciousness, as defined by Hay and Nye, two of the researchers mentioned earlier.